like to call to order the Bellefonte Borough Council work session, please. Welcome everyone. I'd like to begin with a trivia question from Vice President Barbara Dan.
Thank you, President Bernier. I have a Pennsylvania question for you tonight. What two counties in Pennsylvania have more deer than people? And this will be multiple guess. McKean and Mifflin, Cameron and Potter, Bedford and Tioga, Lehigh and Lycoming.
Cameron and Potter.
That's it, yes.
I don't have to pay tax this year. Is that the prize? All right, next is Ms. Deb Berger. The floor is yours.
All right. I am the real estate tax collector for Bellefonte Borough. I also collect for Bellefonte School District and Center County. I was here earlier in the spring to talk to you about the county is going with a different processing company for their data and for the printing of their bills. We as tax collectors were told to come to our municipalities and ask for $50 from you. That was what the first email back in February had told us to do. Well, first of all, I don't think that is our position. We are elected to collect taxes, not to go out and do these contracts for them. But we're in this position, so we're trying to help all our municipalities, and all the tax collectors have to do the same thing. We first went back to the new company and said $50 across the board is not fair. You have some municipalities that have 500 tax parcels, some of them have 4,000. So you need to redo whatever you're going to be charging these people. This has been going on since February 6th, back and forth. It is like a football game that they keep changing the goal line. I printed and I put a lot of papers for each of you out there, and I'm going to go through each one of them. Since I did those, we've had changes since then. This is an ongoing, everyday thing. So we're just going to start at the top, and I will kind of go through what I know to the best of my ability, to the information that I have as of today. The first thing I gave you, this is a copy of the new tax bill that the county will be using. You as a borough can choose to either go with this company, which is called GSS, Government Software Solutions, out of Wayne County, or you can stay with the old bills that we've always used, which is done by RBA locally here in Lamont. These are the
Mr. President. Mr. President. This is Randy. This is very hard to hear from the podium. It breaks up continuously. Just letting you know.
All right, Randy, we'll try and turn it up for you.
Different microphone? I don't know. Hold it closer to my mouth. Is that better, Randy? He's not answering. Is that better? Okay, I guess. All right, this is the way the county bills will come. It is just a trifold. They will now mail it from Wayne County. If you open up this bill on the inside, this is a sample of what it would be, and this would be as if the municipality, you, would be also going with them. You see the different breakdown. The bills that we have here, I get from RBA, we get 3 copies of them, a white, a green, and a yellow. The yellow stays in my office. The green is used to send to escrow companies if Wells Fargo or M&T Bank or Loretta needs a copy to pay their escrow. I send them the green copy. The white one goes to the homeowner. I also use the green copy for any reminder bills at the end of the year that aren't paid. RBA supplies all of these, as well as what we call the duplicate, which is this book. It's a master book with all the parcels and all the people in it. Okay, that's what they provide from RBA. So if you put the tax bill aside, the next paper that I laid there is from Government Software Solution an estimate of one of their bills, and this was done for Gregg Township. You can see the price of what they would charge for you per individual, and their parcels are $13.36. The next paper at your desk I did with our number of parcels. We have 2,082 taxable parcels. So I broke down what I had when I did these papers according to what GSS had sent us. Since then, I found out this was not correct because they were charging 60 cents per bill to mail. That would be, only half of it would be the borough's part of it, because you split the cost of mailing. You do that now with RBA. You pay for half, county pays for half because it's a combined bill. When GSS sent this out, they were figuring Gregg Township to use just for Gregg Township, not the county also. So the bill, the one from GSX, the actual price is $3,373.87. And like I said, these are the best of my knowledge as of today, what our bill would be with GSS if we go with them. The next paper I did for RBA. If you stick with RBA, the company we're using now, it would be, because I had a mistake in that, and I sent this to Lori today, and she said that some of the figures were wrong. So it would be, no, I'm sorry. This was correct, the 2667, which means RBA would be $706 less than GSS. But one thing GSS will do, if you look back at this paper, they give the option for the taxpayer to pay by credit card. They also take care of all of the billing. They mail out the bills. I wouldn't be having these copies anymore. It would be here. And people have said to me, what would you want to do? Would it be easier to have them do it? Oh yeah, it would be easier. But is that the best thing to make it the easiest for them? The only concern I have with this is it's confusing as it is now, because I'm sure all of you got your tax bills. I made the county give me a paper that stated the bills in 2025 are going to look different, because I'm afraid that people are going to get this trifold bill and they're going to throw it away, not realizing it was a tax bill, which is why I wanted the county to give us those papers. That's confusing enough. If you choose to stay with RBA, they're now going to get 2 tax bills in the spring, one of just the borough and one of the county. They'll all still pay in my office, all the bills, but they're going to be getting 2 of them, which is also going to be confusing. So as the best, and I'm going to keep saying this over and over, the best of my knowledge for today, a $700 difference, this is what you'd have. 2 bills. This is your decision, not mine, as to what the council wants to do with this. Are there any questions?
3 proposals here: government software services, RBA.
No, this is this one that's GSS. That's government software solution. This one was for Gregg Township.
Oh, I see.
This paper was Gregg Township. I made one up for what the borough would be because we have a different number of parcels than Gregg Township.
All right, well, as it's been pointed out many times since I've sat here, I'm not very well educated, but the difference between these 2 prices is more like $1,300, not $600.
Well, because this one, I said, this one gets lowered because they changed the figure today on me. So the GSS number for the county is now 3373.87
Oh, okay.
because they cut the postage in half.
Same service, just a completely different.
It pretty much is the same service. I've been to 2 different meetings with GSS. The one, they did a complete rundown of how we would process the tax bills in our office. It's pretty much the same. It's a new system. We'd all have to get used to doing that, but there isn't a lot of difference with it. There are, like, the personal aspect is kind of taken out of there, because like right now, I have some of the borough residents that in the spring bill, they go to Florida for 6 months. They give me their Florida address, I pull their bills out, and I write their address and send it to Florida. GSS is not going to do that. So all of these bills are going to be mailed, whatever the address is on the actual tax bill is where it's going to go. I won't have any control over that. Another thing you have to keep into consideration, if you choose to go with this versus GSS, I don't know if the county will take care of the unpaids. Like at the end of the year, I turn into the county all of the tax bills that have not been paid. The county then collects it. Well, if you're on an RBA system, I don't know if they will collect your unpaid taxes. Now, I did have, and I just did 4 years worth. In 2020, I turned in 45 tax bills that the county had to collect. In 2021, it was 44. In 2022, it was 45. In 2023, it was 57. So that would be what I assume you would be responsible to collect their taxes, because the county's not going to be running the RBA system. That's a question you need to ask for the county.
We wouldn't be voting on this evening, so we're just trying to gather enough information so that we can try to figure out what the best option is.
That's correct. That's why it's
Okay.
in the work session.
Okay.
Yes, and what they would like is RBA would like to know, because there are definitely some municipalities in Center County that are staying with RBA. RBA wants to know by October 1st who is doing this. And I know because of doing your budgets, you also have to know what company you're going with, so in order to be able to budget for it. Now, we as tax collectors are constantly sending out questions. I have a page of questions that the Benner Township tax collector sent out on Friday. As of yet, no answers have come back. It gets tedious and a little frustrating that we can't get the answers. If a municipality or a school district would ask the questions, I feel you're going to get the answers faster. So I can try to answer any questions you have here, but some of them would probably have to come from GSS or RBA or the county, as in, are they going to be willing to collect your unpaids?
Deb, how long have you been doing this?
Oh, I don't know, 20 years or so?
20 years or so.
And I know the county has used RBA for 45 years.
All right. That's
We
what I was gonna
have
ask
no
next.
idea why.
What's the deal here? Why is this being presented to us?
Oh,
So we've been using RBA for,
45 years. 45 years.
is there a problem?
And this
Is
is-
there a problem with RBA, in your opinion, as the tax collector for 20 plus years? I'm sure
What I
everyone knows
was
about tax
told-
collecting. I don't know anything about it, so.
Yes, what I was told, because I stopped one of our Center County, not council members, commissioners, in the hallway at the Willowbank building. And I asked, why are you doing this? This was blindsided by everybody. Nobody knew about it. I was told it was a security issue. I went to RBA. I said, okay, commissioners tell me it's a security issue. They said they have never once come to us in 45 years and told us that they have a security issue with our company. So,
Okay.
long story short, I have no idea why it was done.
So for me, and having to decide on what I should do here, you've been collecting our taxes for 20 plus years. RBA has been doing it for 45 years. You have no problem with RBA?
No.
Never have?
No.
Enough said.
No.
Thank you.
And I can show you, we have been asking since March for GSS to give the tax collectors a manual so that we can look over what it is. They didn't have a manual. This is my RBA manual. RBA gave me for free. Any question I have when I'm running anything, exonerations or anything like that, everything's in this book. GSS is still working on our manual. Not saying it's not a good company. I would never put them down because I've not worked with them. I just am frustrated that they send one thing out on a Friday and then the numbers get changed again by Tuesday.
Some of us feel your pain. Thank you, Ms. Berger. Any other questions for Ms. Berger?
What I would plead with you is whatever decision you make, come January, if you can get the newsletter out early, put copies. This is what, if you're going to go with the county, then our county bill, it's all going to be combined. It's going to look like this. Put a sample of this in with your newsletter so that all the homeowners have it. If you're going to go with 2 of them, make sure the homeowners know it. And I think the best way to reach them is through the newsletter. So if you could please get that out, because bills will go out the middle of February. So if you can get that newsletter out in January, I think it would be very helpful.
One of the problems that just looking at this, to me, the RB whatever, the one you've been with, looks like it's cheaper, it's simpler. We've gone. However, looking at the other side, and this is where I don't know where I would be going, is that if we end up with 2 bills, people are going to see the first bill and go, oh my goodness, I've got a lower tax bill, and pay one of them and forget about the other. And then they're going to get dissed. I don't know if that's possible, and I don't know if there's a question that could be asked to the county to see how they would deal with that if we were to decide to go with 2 separate software companies. I think that's part of the information that we might need.
Is it possible that a tax collector would get 2 bills?
Oh, there are a lot of municipalities in the county right now. Ferguson Township gets 2 bills, College Township gets 2 bills. Theirs is already separated and they get 2 bills. I agree, it is going to be confusing.
We can avoid that by making a good decision, right? And picking one.
If
Is that
you
correct?
just go, but you cannot, the county is not changing.
Right.
You are going to get, the county is definitely going with GSS. They're not changing. So if you don't go with GSS, taxpayers are getting 2 bills. It's a done deal. And as far as we know, GSS, it's a 2-year contract that the county has signed. So we'll see after 2 years. But for right now, this is a definite with the county. So they're not changing their mind.
One more question. You said that there's like anywhere between 40 and 55 delinquent bills at the end of the year, correct?
Correct.
And we're not sure, we need to ask the county, will they be collecting for us for those bills should that happen? If they don't, then we need to have some kind of numbers saying how much it would cost us to do that tax collection.
Yeah, and then that would be an added expense on
Yes.
top of if you go with RBA. Yes.
Anybody else? As if the, oh, Deborah.
If, what happens in the fall with the school tax bill? Is that also going to be GSS or RBA?
School has not made up their decision yet,
Okay.
so they may be going with RBA.
I have to ask, what would be easiest for our taxpayers?
But I did hear that.
What would be easiest for our citizens in paying their taxes? What decision can we make to make it easier? I'm totally confused. I'm probably the only one, but what can I do to help it be easier for our citizens?
Stick with one bill.
Right. I don't
Yeah.
understand the two bill thing. I don't want that. I don't want to vote for two bills.
Okay, then you would be going with GSS, which is, as of the figures I have today,
A few more
$700 more, but you don't know if the county's not going to collect your unpaid, then you're going to have a fee for that. So the $700 may be erased. It could be a wash. It would be an even across the board fee. I mean, in the scheme of things, $700 isn't a lot. If you're looking at the confusion or less confusion for the taxpayer, it would definitely be one bill.
I mean, yeah, of course, but we're talking about taxes here. Yes. Okay.
I suggest, whichever one you're going to go with, you get it firm in writing, especially with GSS. You've worked with RBA for a long time. If you're going to go with GSS, just like this estimate that went out to Gregg Township and then they find out it was wrong, I would get an estimate or a contract with GSS firm so that no incidentals pop up.
We'll be meeting with Deb and some of these vendors and get some of the details that Deb's mentioned, talk to the county about delinquent taxes, collections, and all of that, get some details and bring them back to you.
Okay,
Anything else? Council, thank you, Ms. Berger. Appreciate it.
no problem.
That concludes the Bellefonte Borough work session. order the Bellefonte Borough Council business meeting. I'd like to start with Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next is roll call.
Mr. Bernier?
Here.
Mr. Brackbill is in here by Zoom. Thank you. Ms. Clayton?
Here.
Ms. Dan?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Present.
Ms. McKean?
Here.
Ms. Purnell?
Here.
Ms. Sedgwick is excused. Ms. Tosti Vasey?
I'm here.
And Mr. Larson?
Here.
Mayor Johnson?
Here.
Thank you.
Next is public comment, oral, as advised by the borough. Oh, I'm sorry. Additions to the council meeting agenda. Deborah, what do you have?
I would like to add basically an informational announcement to current and old business about the Public Transit Task Force public meeting. It's a non-action item, it's just an announcement.
Is that
So
a
it's-
motion then to do that?
It doesn't need a motion.
Say what it is again. It's public transit.
This is the Public Transit Task Force public meeting announcement.
Okay, so you'd like to make an announcement about when the public transit task force meeting is?
Yes, please.
Okay. Ralph, can we add that to the agenda?
Yes.
Is it coming up soon? Is that?
It's
yes.
not
Lisa?
it's coming up, but it's not an action item.
I
That's
got you.
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank
We
you.
don't need a motion. We can add it to the agenda?
Yes.
All right, let's add it to the agenda. Thank you, Ms. Clayton. Do we want to do that first then on the agenda when we get there to that point? Just so I don't
Well-
forget.
It's added as informational right
Okay.
now.
All right. Okay, next is public comment, oral, as advised by the Borough Solicitor Resolution 080520-24-1, passed on August 5th, 2024, at the council meeting is null and void. For public comment, Borough Council will follow the resolution that was previously in place, 2021-1220-01. This public comment period is for oral comments regarding action items listed on the meeting agenda. You must be a Bellefonte resident, nonprofit representative, business owner, or an official representative of another government agency. Speakers shall identify themselves by name and street, municipality, if outside of the borough. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, please.
Before we get started, I want to say something. You know, on August 5th, we passed a resolution, it went to vote, and I knew that we were making a mistake, but I did not say anything, and I apologize to council for that. It was kind of a heated meeting. We were kind of off our game, so to speak. I do apologize for that. I should have caught it and said something to the council president, but I did not. So again, I wanted to publicly apologize for that. The resolution we are following was passed in 21, and that's what the president just referred to. I don't know if the solicitor has any other comments.
No other comments. We'll go back to the way we used to do business before that resolution of the last meeting, and because we didn't take comment before it, we will not honor it.
Okay, so we do have a list, as you may have seen. If you didn't sign in, we're asking you to sign in. This is for comment on items or items that are on the current agenda. The number one speaker in the list is Mr. Joe Beagle. You can come up to the podium and make sure the green light is on the microphone.
It's on. Thank you. Joe Beagle, 924 Shady Lane, Bellefonte. Bellefonte resident since 1970. I served in Borough Council for 30 years. I'd like to speak about the resolution about the ceasefire resolution that's being proposed. Who attacked Israel? Hamas. What did Iran leaders say when they supported Hamas? Kill all Jews and Americans. I say to council, no way do we want to follow that. No one wants war, but Hamas has elected to do so. This is what President Biden said. If you want to quote, it's not a quote, it is directly from the USA Today, what President Biden said whenever Hamas invaded Israel. Biden compared the Hamas attack on October 7th to the brutality of the Holocaust. The world watched then and knew, and the world did nothing, he said. We will not stand by and do nothing again. Not today, not tomorrow, not never. That was the President of the United States' words. With that being said, I want to say thank you, Council, and thank you for serving the people that serve on Council. I want to thank you. I learned a long time ago when I served Council back when I was just starting as a young guy. Had a lot of people supporting me. A lot of people said to me, Joe, always do what is best for Bellefonte. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, next one on the list is Elizabeth Falk. Please come up again, make sure that green light is on.
Good evening, council members. Elizabeth Falk. I live on West Lynn Street. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our arguments on the Gaza ceasefire resolution. As I was reflecting on how I wanted to communicate what I wanted to say about why I believe it's imperative that the council votes to support a ceasefire resolution, my first thought was, how would I answer the question, why does it matter whether or not the borough of Bellefonte, Pennsylvania supports a ceasefire? And two reasons came to mind. The first perhaps draws a more direct line between the ongoing conflict and death of civilians in Gaza to the residents of Bellefonte, and the second is a more abstract moral reason. So though the fighting between Israel and Hamas is happening roughly 7,000 miles away, this kind of conflict is never contained to a specific geographical location. I believe that in previous meetings, people have spoken about Bellefonte citizens who have joined the armed forces and fought overseas. So there is a chance that people living in Bellefonte would be directly impacted by the conflict. But adding to this, Julia Kayam, who's a former advisor in the Department of Homeland Security, and she's a regular contributor to CNN, asks that we take a moment to consider how it is that people become radicalized. And she argues that violence against unarmed civilians, like the attacks ordered by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, which the US government continues to support by sending money to fund Israel's military, it's this kind of violence that spurs young people to join extremist movements. So witnessing the senseless death of loved ones can cause people to look for a way to right a wrong. And the longer the conflict continues, the more volatile the region becomes, which can spread out to areas beyond Israel and the Gaza Strip. But beyond just a desire to end violence in the region because of its potential effect to those close to home, I think of what supporting a ceasefire means ideologically and ethically. The fact that I'm able to speak in front of you now is evidence that we live in a community that believes people have a right to discuss ideas and express our differences without threat of violence. We believe that changes can occur as a result of speaking to and listening to others, not through deadly force. I moved to Bellefonte from Rhode Island 2 years ago when I took a position at Penn State as a professor. I teach writing classes there, and I teach students that language has power. We can facilitate change through words. The people in Gaza and Israel are currently stripped of their ability to participate in talks that could end civilian deaths. And if the tables were turned, I certainly hope that if we were the ones at war, people around the world would stand up and do whatever they could to support the return of a safe environment where words and not missiles are resolving our differences. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 3 is Peter Serafine. Forgive me if I don't pronounce the names correctly. Yes.
You got it right. Most people don't, so
thanks.
Congratulations. Peter Serafini. I live on East High Street. I'd like to begin by addressing the ceasefire resolution as well. I oppose the resolution for two reasons. First, I think it's outside the role of local government to involve themselves in international affairs. And second, the purpose of government as defined by Thomas Jefferson in the Declaration of Independence is to protect the rights of its citizens. On October 7th, 30 American citizens died. 8 more were taken hostage. Of those 8 hostage, 4 were released. 2 more have been killed. 1 of them executed just this weekend. And there's yet 2 more we think are still alive and still hostage now. And the proposed resolution does not make any reference to American citizens. However, that's not the primary reason I'm speaking tonight. While I appreciate that the Borough Solicitor advised Council that the resolution passed during last meeting is now considered null and void, I don't consider the issue resolved. The actions of the Borough President, Vice President, and Borough Manager during the last meeting were deeply concerning. The 3 of you pushed through a resolution without allowing for public comment, even after you were warned that that was a violation of the Sunshine Laws. That raises a critical question. If you're willing to do that in a public meeting on camera, what are you doing when the public can't see you? The Sunshine Law exists to ensure transparency, allow the constituents to voice their opinions, put in their input, and to foster trust in government, and you disregarded all of those principles. These concerns led me to write the op-ed that ran in the CDT and the Express, and I had hoped to address the issue at the second meeting in August, but there was no second meeting in August. The last meeting was 29 days ago. Sunshine Law only allows 30 days to file civil suit. So that's what I did. I felt I had no choice. I have filed civil suit against the borough for this egregious violations, and yet I'm surprised to see that that didn't even make it on tonight's agenda, not even as correspondence received. In my suit, I'm asking that the borough manager, council president, and vice president be removed from their leadership positions because of the egregious and blatant violations of the Sunshine Law. Thank you for your time.
Next one is number 4, Bonnie, looks like Smeltzer, I believe.
I'm not a Bellefonte resident, but clergy rep. My name is Bonnie Klein-Smeltzer. I'm pastor emerita of University Baptist and Brethren Church in State College. I speak as a person of faith and a representative of an historic peace church, the Church of the Brethren. I also speak as a bereaved mother living with the ongoing grief of having lost a child. I know something of the pain of Israeli and Palestinian parents whose children have died in this war. And I feel deeply today the shock of the families of the 6 hostages who were recently murdered by Hamas. As a borough council member, you may still be asking yourselves, why issue a ceasefire resolution? How will it change anything? It is difficult to know if a resolution is anything more than symbolic. Yet aren't symbols important? Every meeting you stand and you say the Pledge of Allegiance to that flag that is a symbol of democracy. Your adoption of this ceasefire resolution is a symbol of your commitment to a world where people can live safely in peace, whether it's here in Bellefonte or half a world away in Israel and Gaza. Your ceasefire resolution gives voice to your values in a time of moral crisis. The death toll on October 7th was horrendous, and now there are no words to describe the death toll in Gaza, the ongoing destruction, the devastation of infrastructure, and the starvation of people trying to survive there. How can you be silent amid such cruelty and horror? How can you desire anything less for the people of Gaza or Israel than what you desire for your constituents here in Bellefonte? In times of crisis, people and municipalities and countries and organizations speak out, lending their voices to a global chorus for a just peace. As it's been said in previous meetings, one reason for this resolution is the use of our tax dollars. Our money is funding the ongoing destruction and killing of innocent men, women, and far too many children in Gaza. Their blood is on our hands each day that it continues. This resolution signals to members of Congress that you, their constituents, want to change to our policies in the region. Finally, this resolution is the right thing to do, for it is right and good to stand up for the innocent people of Gaza, to call for the safe distribution of food and water and medical supplies, to stop the bombs, and to let the citizens of Bellefonte know that their leaders are willing to use their voices to speak out on behalf of the powerless here in this town and in a land far away, in a place called Gaza. I thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I urge you to pass this resolution.
The fifth person will be Megan Irwin.
Hello, my name is Megan Irwin. I'm a lifelong resident of Bellefonte. I'm a graduate of Bellefonte Area High School and a member of People's Defense Front of Northern Appalachia. I'm proud to be a community member of Historic Bellefonte, which earned that title for its role in fighting to end slavery, desegregating our schools before any other town in Pennsylvania, and for borough residents who have served in the U.S. military overseas. For these reasons, I urge the Council to continue this tradition of making history by giving its full support to a ceasefire resolution in Gaza. A resolution for peace in Gaza is in the borough's best interests and has a direct impact on our community. Firstly, the borough has always recognized and honored borough residents who have served in the U.S. military. Every day that passes without a ceasefire increases the chance of a wider war that will pull Bellefonte military personnel onto the front lines overseas, putting community members at risk. Additionally, federal tax dollars leave the borough and help pay for the war on Gaza. We have a responsibility to speak out against genocide and unjust war that our own tax dollars facilitate, a war that has claimed the lives of thousands of civilians and families over nearly 11 months, and leave thousands more still at risk. I urge the Council to uphold the title of Historic Bellefonte and finding Bellefonte on the right side of history by voting to support the Bellefonte-Gaza ceasefire draft resolution. Thank you for your time.
The next person is Waul Jabbar, I believe.
Hello, my name is Wael Jabbar. I'm representing the Islamic Society of Central Pennsylvania. Every day, as I scan the news, I'm bombarded by the grim and catastrophic news coming out of Gaza. Every day, I'm reminded also of the Holy Quran's message in chapter 5, verse 32, whoever kills a soul, it is as if he had slain humankind entirely. And whoever saves one, it is as if he had saved humankind entirely. Think about that. Killing one soul is being equated to killing the entirety of humanity. Also, think about the flip side. Saving one life, only one life, is equated to saving the entirety of humanity. Shouldn't we all strive to get that privilege? The honor, the blessing of saving the entirety of humanity? I'm also reminded of what my Jewish friends had told me, quoting from the Talmud. Whoever destroys a single life is considered by Scripture to have destroyed the whole world. And whoever saves a single life is considered by Scripture to have saved the whole world. Think about that. Two holy texts, thousands of years apart, saying the exact same thing. Why I'm telling you all of this? Because I want to thank you. Thank each and every one of you because you listened. You wholeheartedly listened. You felt the pain we had, and you wanted to accommodate. You wanted to make sure that your constituents are well. You let every single one of us speak, share with you what we are going through. I am sure deep inside you knew that when you do not postpone this resolution anymore, you would be helping in saving not only one life, but many lives. You knew that saving each one of these lives is like saving humankind. We are in dire need of that. If we do a quick math, over the last 11 months, every hour of the day, a soul has been lost in Gaza. Every single hour of the day. You can change that. You are so close to approve the resolution and to play a role in saving humanity, even though symbolic. You are so close to get the deed done. If you are a believer in the afterlife, I'm sure there is a special place in heaven for you. If you're a believer in humanity, I'm sure humanity will be praising you. I urge you to please vote yes and let this resolution pass. Thank you.
Tony White. Tony White.
Hello, my name is Tony White. I'm a Bellefonte resident. I'm here to request that you vote yes on the proposed resolution calling for a ceasefire in the Israel-Palestine conflict. I teach philosophy at Penn State, specializing in ethics and political philosophy, so I'm going to outline a moral case for a ceasefire. One moral position someone could have on war is absolute pacifism, the view that war is always wrong. My own position is called contingent pacifism, that war is almost always wrong except for very limited exceptions. But you don't have to be a pacifist at all to see that this particular war is wrong. Even if you believe in the just war theory, this war goes very much against it. The terrorist attack by Hamas on October 7th was completely immoral. Although Palestine was living under unjust oppression from Israel, this in no way excuses the targeting of innocent people. In the same way, the terrorist attack by Hamas in no way excuses the subsequent indiscriminate killing of innocent people by Israel in response. One aspect of the just war theory is having a just cause, but that's just one aspect. A just cause doesn't say that you can then do anything goes. Even if the October 7th attack provided Israel with a just cause to defend itself, the just war theory has the additional requirements of proportionality and discrimination. Discrimination says you must discriminate between combatants and civilians and not target civilians. Proportionality says that casualties, especially civilian casualties, must be limited to only what is necessary and outweighed by positive outcomes. Israel has grossly violated the discrimination and proportionality requirements of the just war theory. Tens of thousands of civilians have been killed. Hospitals, places of worship, and schools have been bombed. It's estimated that 9 out of 10 people in Gaza have been displaced from their homes. 9 out of 10. Imagine if our presidential administration did something wrong, and in response, all of our homes were destroyed, and essentially everyone that you know was either killed or had to flee for their lives. This war has gone way beyond defense to offense, and it has to stop now. Piling on more and more devastation is not a path to peace in the region or in the world. The question arises, what does it have to do with us? A lot of the time bad things happen, and there's not much you can do about it. But if there is something you can do, even if it's small, that's better than nothing, and you should do it. The very least that we can do, if a massacre is happening, the very least, is to use our voice to say that it's wrong and we're against it. You have a clear opportunity to do that by voting yes on the resolution. Moreover, if we're partly responsible for the wrongdoing, this gives us a special responsibility to do something about it. Our tax dollars are helping to fund Israel's indiscriminate bombing. Our government that we empower through our system to represent us is providing weaponry that's being used to kill civilians. The very least we can do is to speak through our representatives to say that we're not on board with this. If a massacre is going on in our name, the least we can do is say that we're not for it. Will it actually end the war? Well, it has a better chance than voting no does. Public opinion rises little by little, until it reaches a critical mass. Every change starts small and grows. We should put what influence we have in the right direction and join the towns across the country that have called for a ceasefire. Thank you for allowing me to speak for the 3 minutes.
The next speaker, I believe it's Joel Laudez. Hopefully that's close.
My name is Joan Landis. I speak as a representative of Faculty for Justice in Palestine and as a Jewish American. Honored to address you and agonized by Israel's genocidal assault on Gaza's Palestinians with unrestricted American support. I urge your support of this resolution, and I would like to urge you to support a total, immediate, permanent ceasefire in Gaza and to prevent further escalation on Palestinian life in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem by the Israeli army and settlers. A ceasefire remains the only moral, humane way to free the remaining Israeli hostages, survivors themselves of nearly 11 months of Israeli indiscriminate attack. And it remains the only way to secure the release of at least 10,000 Palestinian prisoners, including doctors, incarcerated, starved, sexually abused, and systematically tortured by Israel, as documented by Israeli and international human rights groups. A ceasefire is not an endorsement of any side to this conflict. It is the path to peace, not war. It is a precondition for the entry of the urgently needed 1.2 million polio vaccines, food, water, clean sanitation, medical care for a beleaguered, multiply displaced population which has lost 80 to 90% of their homes, their hospitals, their universities, their schools, their libraries, their archives, their churches, the ancient Grand Mosque and others, markets, farms, roads, and those precious people who enlivened civilian life. I leave to others the task of narrating the conditions, the countless intimate stories among the 40,000 plus dead, mostly women and children. Though I can't stop crying for the beautiful 6-year-old Hind, deliberately shot along with her approved rescuers by the Israeli army. The father who went to register his newborn twins to find them and his wife bombed to death upon his return, and all the murdered, complete multi-generational families. I tremble before images of Israeli caterpillars and tanks gratuitously ripping apart already poor road surfaces. I was born shortly after the World War II nightmare into an observant Jewish family, solemnly tutored in the pledge, never again, haunted by the question, how did the Holocaust happen? And where were all the good people? Thankfully, we live now in a world where humane treatment in war and all human beings' rights are protected by international law. But laws need enforcement. As Martin Luther King's courageous call, we know, to disobey unjust laws, but we forget that he also reminded us that it's our legal and moral responsibility to obey just law. This is the power of Bellefonte, to defend justice and to support this ceasefire resolution. Thank you again.
Yes, Julia Kashdorf.
Good evening. My name is Julia Spiker Kasdorf. I live on North Wilson Street in Bellefonte. Thank you so much, Shauna McCain, and all the council members for including the ceasefire resolution on tonight's agenda. I'm here to ask Bellefonte to join our neighboring Pennsylvania municipalities, State College, Erie, and Lancaster, as well as the American families of hostages held since the October 7 attacks, to call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. As the bombardment continues into its 11th month, I have no illusions that a vote by our borough council can reverse a genocide. But I am not without hope. Within the next couple of days, temporary pauses in the bombing will enable about 600,000 children to receive polio vaccines through the work of the World Health Organization, United Nations Relief and Works Organization, and UNICEF. Despite the loss of nearly all hospitals and schools and more than 40,000 people, most of them civilians, parents in Gaza are finding ways to get their young children vaccinated for their own futures and to prevent an epidemic in the region. That's a gesture of hope. Adopting this resolution will be a small act of hope and solidarity both. It asks elected officials to actively intercede to prevent further killing and displacement of people in Gaza. It seeks a permanent ceasefire, safe distribution of humanitarian aid, restoration of water and electricity, distribution of medical aid, and respect for international law. Adopting this resolution in Bellefonte will show our Arab American neighbors and the visiting scholars and international students from the Middle East at Penn State that this borough is mindful of the losses and sorrows they have endured. Bellefonte Borough has issued proclamations in support of all kinds of things, from National Library Week to a philatelic memorial of the Holocaust. Let's stand on our proudest traditions and demonstrate tonight that we can stand with all people who are innocent, regardless of religion, race, or place of ancestral origin.
So say Samuel.
Good evening. My name is Sajay Samuel. I'm a member of the Faculty for Justice in Palestine. I want to thank you because I know this has been a contentious question of having outsiders from Bellefonte come in, and by extending your hospitality to us, to me, you recognize the urgency of the moment. I'm an American citizen who, like you, has the blood of innocent men, women, and children on my hands. What our government does, it does in our name. For 11 months, billions of dollars worth of US guns, bombs, and planes have been used to murder, maim, and eradicate an overwhelmingly innocent and an overwhelmingly defenseless people of Gaza. Medical authorities estimate almost 250,000 Gazans have died, 70% of whom are women and children. People are not only killed by the 2,000-pound US bombs that can blow a 7-story building to dust, people also die because they're buried alive in rubble, they lack food, clean water, sanitation, and medicines. 8 of 10 Gazans are refugees and their descendants. The question is where they came from. What were they taking refuge in Gaza from? Gazans are Palestinians who were driven off their land in 1948 to make way for Israeli settlers. Now, about 2.2 million Gazans are concentrated on a land roughly the area occupied by the distance between Bellefonte and Lewistown, or Bellefonte and Center Hall. At the UN on September the 23rd, Benjamin Netanyahu showed a map of the Greater Israel, which completely erased not only Gaza, but also the West Bank, a Palestinian territory occupied by Israel. The process of removing a people from their land has only intensified over the last 11 months. Gazans have been told to move from one area to another as hospitals, universities, and homes have been pulverized. There are no more safe zones, and the bombs keep falling. Americans must confront their own complicity in this ongoing genocide. As individual citizens or borough council members, We cannot influence, much less decide, US government policy. We cannot stop this wanton killing of men, women, and children. Yet we can say to the US government, without whom this war would stop tomorrow, we can say to our government, not in our name. To vote for a ceasefire resolution is to do what is right. It might not stop the killing fields in Gaza, but it will record for posterity that on this day, the citizens of Bellefonte, represented by you, their council members, said, not in our name. Thank you very much for your attention.
Looks like John Holtz.
Good evening. My name is John Holst. I'm a resident of the borough, and I'm asking you to vote yes on the Gaza ceasefire resolution. Historic Bellefonte is written on the wall in this room. Why is Bellefonte historic? I would argue that the age of our town and its buildings does not make it historic. The bedrock being blasted from the new school construction site that we hear every day is millions of years old, but that doesn't make the former farm field historic. What makes Bellefonte historic is what borough residents have done. Many of the historic acts of Bellefonte residents over the years that make our town historic did not take place here in the borough. The borough has been accepting applications for the hometown hero banners. Of the 8 categories for which one can be recognized as a hero, only 1 is related to the borough: first responders. 7 of the 8 categories are for people who served in Europe, Asia, North Africa, or the Middle East in what we refer to as foreign wars, like our VFW. These individuals are heroes because when the time came to do something about something happening thousands of miles from the borough, they said yes. They considered fascism and the genocide against Jews in Europe as issues worthy of being taken up by residents of the borough. One can say the same for all the other wars borough residents have served in. Now the borough recognizes them for thinking and acting beyond the boundaries of the borough, for saying yes when it came time to do something about a wrong taking place overseas. In this moment, we are asking you to do something infinitely easier, but in the same spirit of these hometown heroes. They said yes and put their lives on the line to help stop genocide and oppression overseas. We are asking you to merely say yes during the roll call of votes on the resolution. There are other actions by residents and leaders of Bellefonte that make our town historic. One of these was just mentioned by another speaker, the desegregation of Bellefonte schools. Bellefonte leaders did not have to desegregate schools in 1885. But when area residents petitioned leaders to do so, they said yes. So it is our making of history that makes Bellefonte historic. You have an opportunity now with the Gaza ceasefire resolution to stand in the proud tradition of those Bellefonters before us who have answered the call to service in multiple ways and continue making our borough historic. Please join in making history in Bellefonte by saying yes to the Gaza ceasefire resolution. Thank you.
Next one is Rua Daaz. I believe that's how you pronounce it, not sure.
Hello, can I start? Yes, okay. Hi everyone, my name is Ru'a. I didn't come with anything prepared, so I'm just gonna speak to y'all. You know, today I think you've heard arguments that are based in statistics. You've heard arguments that are based in Islamic code. You've heard arguments that are based in the history of Bellefonte, and you've heard, these arguments that folks have been repeating for 10 months now. To the first person that spoke, I think if we have any ounce of critical thinking skills, then we understand that we are 10 months into a genocide. We are talking about the deaths of 40,000 people, which I'm not going to repeat because that's the number that you've heard a million times. 40,000 people is the entire population of State College. 40,000 people is the population of Bellefonte times 7. That is how many people have died, and that is a number that stagnated months ago. One of the most esteemed medical journals estimated 186,000 people have been murdered. I have a minute and a half left, so I want to take a moment to re-ground us in reality, to re-ground us in where we are right now. It is September 3rd of 2024, and we are sitting here debating whether we should whether we should pass a resolution for a ceasefire against a genocide. That is what we are talking about right now. That is what a vote no means. A vote no means that the pictures of the children with their heads blown off, that is what we can't bring ourselves to say that needs to stop. The cases of sexual assault, the fact that Israel is being tried in the International Court of Justice for genocide, that is what we can't bring ourselves to say enough is enough to. You all, I'm sure, are intelligent people. I'm not going to continue to tell you things that you have to have heard on the news by now. Today, you are voting on a resolution of whether we should allow for a genocide to continue or a genocide to stop. That is the decision that you're going to go to sleep tonight thinking about. That is the decision that your children are going to think about. That is the decision that is going to be written in the history books of what you chose to do in your position.
Next one is Stacy Hall.
Hi again, I'm Stacy Hall. My children go to school here in Bellefonte, and my ancestors are buried in Meyer Cemetery, which is named after my family. I'm not here tonight to tell you about the atrocities that I've witnessed every single day since we saw each other last. I'm here to tell you a different story. I remember the day my little brother, Matt, told me that he joined the United States Marine Corps. I cried because I no longer felt like I could protect my little brother. But I supported him, and when he graduated from boot camp at Camp Lejeune, I was there. I visited him twice at Camp Pendleton when he was training to be reconnaissance Marine. And then he was deployed. And he told me that he was deployed on a submarine for 11 months. And he told me how awful it was to be on a submarine under the decks for 11 months. And he made up or told me these stories about boredom. 2 weeks ago, I found out that my brother was in Afghanistan. He lied to me for 16 years. When he got back from his 11-month tour on a submarine, he didn't speak to anybody for a year. My brother lost his brothers in Afghanistan. He saw them die, and it traumatized him. My children recently asked my brother, they don't know about the conversation we had 2 weeks ago. Before that, they've seen his Marine stuff. Have you ever killed anybody? And he said, we'll talk about that when you get older. And I didn't understand his answer at the time. Now, I'm having a hard time asking him the question I want to ask him. Did you kill anybody? Did you kill children in Afghanistan? My brother and I love each other deeply. We have a great relationship. That won't change. I don't want other sisters and brothers to hide from each other. We must protect our service people. We must pass this ceasefire resolution. Thank you.
Claudia Wilson.
My name is Claudia Wilson, and I live on Wilson Street in Bellefonte. The history of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict dates back to 1947, more than 77 years, and it's terribly complex. It would take considerable time and a thorough reading of history to understand it fully. But it takes no time at all to know and realize that an ungodly humanitarian catastrophe has been unfolding in Gaza every minute, every day since last year, or even before. Yet we sit here pondering whether we are in any way responsible and if we should do anything about it. Just a few facts, and I know that some people have already shared some of these, about the impact of the conflict that is now a genocide. In 2023, over 33,000 Palestinians had been killed, 70% of which were women and children, and as we know, the numbers continue to rise. 93% of the Palestinian population suffer from crisis levels of hunger and malnutrition. Rates of infectious disease such as meningitis, scabies, lice, chickenpox, hepatitis are soaring. There's been documented over 100,000 cases of diarrhea. In fact, the first reported case of polio, which in 25 years has been identified, and now health workers are staging a mass inoculation effort to stem its spread. A shelter intended for 1,000 people is hosting 30,000 people. There's a critical lack of sanitation. For example, one shower for 4,500 people, one toilet for 400 people. And water and waste management infrastructures are being targeted and destroyed. The effects of this war, especially for children, is particularly heinous. Their future emotional and psychological health, development, and cognitive functioning are radically affected by the long-term trauma of a war, if indeed they actually survive. So everything global is local. And as a Quaker, a citizen of the United States, and a resident of Bellefonte, I implore the Bellefonte Borough Council to support this resolution for a ceasefire in Gaza. Time is now, and the clock is ticking.
Tom Dan.
Hi, my name's Tom Dan. I've been a Bellefonte resident for 65 years and a few months, all my life. One of the thing I wanted to address initially is the ceasefire resolution. I'm actually a little torn about it, whether Borough Council should take action on this, but I'm strongly leaning toward no. And the only reason I'm saying that is because you were elected to take care of this town, not to influence or determine foreign policy. That's for the State Department and the White House. Your job is to make sure our streets get plowed. that the sewers don't back up, that the police department is well funded and well staffed, and to make sure all the citizens of this town are safe. No one in this room would argue that what's going on in Gaza and Israel is horrific. It is. All war is horrific, whether it's justified or not. But that doesn't change the fact that what you're charged with is here in Bellefonte, not in Washington, D.C. The second thing I would like to address is the lawsuit that Mr. Serafin allegedly filed. Well, I guess not allegedly, but did file. The only thing I'd like to say about that is, yes, council took action on something they shouldn't. And within days of that having occurred, they took steps to correct it. So they made a mistake, and they corrected it. Okay? I'm sorry? Yes, it was addressed some time ago. I'm just saying what I want to say, Peter. That's all. Okay? But, you know, with all of your knowledge of constitutional law, it might have been a good idea to pick up the phone and, you know, hey, I really think you guys have made a, as a resident of this town who may want to be part of the solution, instead of just going right to the social media and posting a wanted poster of 3 people up on your site or whatever platform you put it on. One of those, and I'll just clarify this, Barbara's my wife. So I do take this a little bit personally. And if I need to apologize for that, I won't. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Next one is Marceline Forrestmeyer.
Good evening. My name is Marceline Forstmeyer. I live on Bishop Street. I use she, her pronouns. I am a new member of the People's Defense Front. I want you to imagine having no drinking water. I want you to imagine having no food. I want you to imagine having 20,000-pound bombs raining down on you. Tens of thousands are dying as a result of this horror. This is happening in Gaza right now. This is happening in Gaza right now because we are allowing it and because the U.S. is funding it. Passing a resolution sends a message that we don't want to be funding this genocide. That we won't be party to the systematic wiping out of tens of thousands of people. But that's what we're doing right now. And while we are funding this genocide, we are defunding things like public transportation and public housing. We should be funding things like supporting the poor and working classes of America, of Pennsylvania, of Bellefonte. Not funding a child-killing machine. Not funding the destruction of our fellow humans. Not funding the horrifying and countless deaths in Gaza. Please pass this resolution for the good of your own souls and the souls of Gaza. I have been counting who has been in favor and who has been against or on the fence about this really easy to pass resolution. And so far it's 3 against and 12 in favor. You are politicians. You understand numbers. Now ask yourself these last few questions. If you heard reports from Germany that they had killed 40,000 Jewish people, would you have sat on your hands or would you have said something? Would you have spoken up? Would you have done the very least that is required of you? Or would you have voted no on a resolution to condemn a Holocaust? Thank you.
Maria Vetter. Maria Vetter. Oh, I'm sorry. You want to do your break?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Alex Lubin.
Hello, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Alex Lubin, and I'm a member of Faculty for Justice in Palestine, which is a faculty group at Penn State that includes faculty from Bellefonte and all over Center County. I'm your neighbor, and I'm also extremely honored to speak to you because I teach, next week I'll be teaching, the history of the Underground Railroad. And I'll focus on Bellefonte, when ordinary people made the brave decision to go against Washington, to go against the will of the United States, which had passed the Fugitive Slave Act, and in an act of conscience to provide safe harbor to the most vulnerable people in this nation. And in some ways, what we're asking you to do today in supporting this ceasefire is to do another act of conscience to support the most vulnerable people right now. I'm here today to advocate for the ceasefire resolution. For over 300 days, as you've heard, the Israeli government has indiscriminately bombed Palestinians in Gaza, a territory that is about the size of Philadelphia. Israel's dropped over 70,000 tons of bombs on Gaza, an amount of firepower that exceeds the total amount of World War II bombings of Dresden, Hamburg, and London combined. Israeli bombs have targeted hospitals, universities, schools, and supply routes. Bombs have hit tent communities in regions of Gaza that the civilian population was told was a safe zone. The victims of these bombs are civilians, women, and children especially, who have been stateless refugees since 1948 or 1967, and have been confined to a geography that in 2018, well before this current conflict, the United Nations had already determined to be unlivable due to a lack of water, medicine, and food. The United Nations and other international bodies have mentioned the likelihood of a plausible genocide in Gaza and the presence of war crimes due to the illegally targeting of civilians and their infrastructure. Why should this council be concerned? First, as you've already heard, our tax dollars and weapons transfers enable the bombings. These are tax dollars that could go to other resources in this community. Second, there's a long tradition of local communities like this one making similar resolutions when their state and national political representatives aren't listening to a majority of the population. And yes, it is a majority of the population that seeks a ceasefire. It's really the lowest hanging fruit of this issue. As other people have said, it's not taking a stand, except a stand for humanity. So I ask you to join a growing number of communities in Pennsylvania and across the nation, and a majority of Americans of all political parties who support in large percentages a ceasefire. Thank you.
Philip Ruth.
Good evening. Thanks for listening to us. My name is Philip Ruth. I've been a resident of Bellefonte for 13 years, or 11 years, since 2013. During that time, I've lived on Wilson Street, and I've worked as a public historian here in town. Lately, much of my research has been devoted to aspects of Bellefonte's history, and the borough's story, I find, is replete with instances of citizens rising up to meet moral and political challenges locally, regionally, nationally, and, as our cemeteries and scrapbooks grimly attest, internationally. Through my recent research into Bellefonte's century-long history of being home to a large and vibrant population of African Americans, I've come to appreciate the moral stand bravely taken by what might be surprising, a few white Bellefonte residents prior to the Civil War against the dehumanizing institution of chattel slavery, which led them to assist their black neighbors in operating what came to be called the Underground Railroad. I have learned that active and outspoken abolitionists were, in fact, a tiny, often scorned minority here in Bellefonte in the lead up to the Civil War, mostly comprising Quaker families and a handful of very passionate clergymen. And at the same time, their many black neighbors, who were largely responsible for the success of the Underground Railroad, were afforded few opportunities to advance themselves socially and economically here. These groups represented relatively small segments of Bellefonte's population, but they were strong in their conviction that all people deserve to be treated with dignity. And a century and a half later, it is the moral resolution and the brave actions of that maligned minority that we not only remember here, but celebrate. We have an opportunity in the proposed ceasefire resolution to make a statement placing Bellefonte on the side of history that prizes human rights, deplores the dehumanization of people based on race, religion, class, and nationality, that rejects the killing, maiming, and terrorizing of innocent civilians, whether by design or through collateral damage, not least of all, as everybody here has said who's been in favor of the resolution, when our own tax dollars are being spent to do so. I urge the Borough Council to pass this ceasefire resolution and add Bellefonte's voice to the call for an end to the unconscionable hostilities in the Israel-Gaza war. Thank you.
Okay, that's all the speakers we had signed up for roll comment. I'm going to take a 5-minute recess. We're going to come back to this and start with section 6 of communications written at 8:40. I'd like to call to order the Bellefonte Borough business meeting back to order, please. If you could take your seats if you're staying. Next item on the agenda is communications. The first item on there is a letter to the North Ward Council members, support of the Bellefonte Gaza ceasefire draft resolution. This relates to an action on the agenda, which we'll come to later. That was in your packets, the letter. Next is the Center County Chamber of Business and Industry. October 9th, there's a luncheon, a presentation of the CC Economic Development Plan. Council members, let staff know if you'd like to be registered. Next is the Center County Library and Historical Museum letter that was included in the packet tonight of a thank you and offer to meet with council. Next is the Center County Refuse and Recycling Authority August newsletter, which is in your packet for informational purposes only. Next is the Center County government accepting the liquid fuels grant application. The application is due October 18th. No council action is required at this time.
I have a question on that one.
Yes.
Are these funds being offered by the Center County government? Are these in addition to what we get directly from our own liquid fuels funding?
Yes, the county gets an allotment from the state as well. They grant it out because they don't own any bridges or roads.
Okay, so then we could actually combine our liquid fuels funds with this and get a bigger bang for the buck?
We've done that many times. Usually in the past, they like to see projects in around the $25,000 range, so it's not a huge amount, but it can help with a project.
So just out of curiosity, what additional things might we be able to do if we could get this additional grant funding?
We can always add, we've got a number of intersections that need printed sidewalks. We could continue working our way through town as one item. What we can do is put a list of suggested ideas together and bring that back at the next meeting.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Next is an email asking the Borough Council to consider the use of the Conservationship Act for several properties on North Thomas Street. Council may refer this to the Bellefonte Area Industrial Development Authority. I need a motion and a second to send this to the Bellefonte Area Industrial Development Authority for consideration.
I'll make that motion, Johnson.
I'll second it, Dan.
Thank you. Discussion? Comments? So we'll send it to the...
Mr. Bernier.
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill.
Yes.
Miss Clayton.
Yes.
Miss Dan.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Miss McKean.
Yes.
Miss Purnell.
Yes.
Miss Tosti Basie.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine and will be acted upon one single motion. I need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Tosti Basie.
Second, Dan.
Thank you.
I have one change I need to make on the meeting minutes of August 5th. It was under new business. Ms. Dan made a motion for payment to John Clare excavating invoice, but it also showed here as providing the second too, but I'm the person who did the second.
We can make that administrative change.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bernier.
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill.
Yes.
Miss Clayton.
Yes.
Miss Dan.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Miss McKean.
Yes.
Miss Purnell.
Yes.
Miss Tosti Basie.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is reports. The first one on the list is from our Mayor Buddy Johnson.
Tonight I have a Patriotism Week proclamation. Whereas the Benevolent and Protective Order of the Elks, through its Constitution, is a patriotic order. And whereas the order promotes the ideals that the citizens of this nation live in freedom, won through the great sacrifices and many tribulations which have provided and the foundation for a free, prosperous, and independent life. And whereas we realize that each generation must work to maintain this freedom, otherwise, through carelessness or indifference, the rights and liberties enjoyed may vanish. And whereas it is fitting and proper to recognize this freedom and to honor the nation which provides it. Now, therefore, I, Buddy Johnson, Mayor of the Borough of Bellefonte, do hereby proclaim September 9th through 15th, 2024 as National Patriotism Week. During this event, urge all citizens to join with the Benevolent and Protective Order of the Elks in expressing gratitude for the privilege of American citizenship with appropriate celebrations and observances. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of this Borough of Bellefonte to be affixed this 9th day of September, 2024. Thank you.
Next, Junior Council Member, Mr. Larson.
Hi, Council. I just wanted to let you know that the school year is off to a great start. The first day of school is the 27th, and so we're a weekend so far. In the last week, the seniors had the opportunity to paint their parking spots with a pre-approved design of their choice. It was like a fun, team bonding exercise in a way. I painted mine a Monopoly parking spot, so it was real original. On top of that, I wanted to mention that the school has some updated policies regarding personal electronic devices, such as phones. I just mention it because some kids think that's a big deal because they're really enforcing the fact that we're not allowed to have phones in educational settings, especially our study halls and just classes in general. So I just decided to put that in there because some kids think that's a major thing. On top of that, some homecoming activities are being planned. So as soon as those dates get approved, I'll let you guys know when the parade is and when the dance is. So I'll let you guys know about that. And then on top of that, the clubs are holding interest meetings for students to just get involved with the school. So that's all.
Thank you there, Mr. Larson. No pictures of the painted parking spots? Maybe next time.
I can definitely give one next week.
All right.
So.
Thank you. Next, the reports are in your packet. Ms. Thompson is not here. Oh, the chief. I'm sorry. I skipped right over acting Chief Whitmer. Chief Whitmer.
Thank you. Good evening. I think everyone had a chance to review the July report that I submitted. July was an important month for the police department. First of all, we moved into our new police station. We thank you for that. It's wonderful. Second of all, we began the civil service hiring process for the 2 vacant spots within the police department. We've since concluded that. We've also completed some biannual training, EVOC training for 2 of our officers, and we participate in some public relations events. Anyone have any questions regarding my report?
How's the renovations going? Did you say? I'm sorry, I missed that part.
The renovations?
Yeah.
They're a little behind by a week or 2, I believe. Mr. Stewart, we're on top of things, though. We have been in contact with Mr. Leakey, so it's moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Thompson's not here. Mr. Barr submitted his report. Does anybody have any questions for him relative code enforcement? If not, Mr. Stewart has submitted his report. Any questions for him? Any comments? Okay. The liaison reports are next. They're obviously, everybody's been given those. We have Mr. Holderman and Mr. Brackbill. Any comments or questions from either of you, or any questions for them? Okay. Anything before we move on to current and old business? Okay, next then is the current and old business. First item is the Bellefonte Elementary School project, Airport Road. The borough has received a number of noise complaints. The borough does not have an ordinance that regulates construction noise to certain hours. I need a motion and a second to have staff review construction-related noise ordinances that have been adopted by other boroughs.
So moved. Tosti Vasey.
Second, Dan.
Discussion or questions or comments?
This. Have we talked to the construction facility about this problem?
Not directly. It's being managed by the school district. They are moving a lot of dirt out there. They did talk about working longer days, or the need of working longer days. Of course, as soon as we started getting the complaints, we checked our books, checked with code, and there was nothing on the books we could use. But they're trying to work the project as much as they can. As you drive out there, there's a lot of dirt they're moving, stone they're moving. I think they're trying to get a lot of that done before the weather changes or whatever. But we could look at creating something. We could look at see if they could curtail it, but it doesn't look like it's possible, the amount of dirt they're moving out there.
Right, it's definitely a lot, but my thought is before we go and do a noise ordinance, perhaps we can come to an agreement with them. That may or may not be possible, but that might be a good way to start that.
We certainly could try to reach out to them, see if we can come up with something. We've had complaints about Saturday mornings, sometimes in the evening. Not sure what's going to work for everybody,
Right.
but we certainly could reach out to them, see what we can work out.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I know, I'm sorry, I too have received numerous complaints, Ralph, and everybody who had a hand in responding to them with me. Thank you very much. I think our response is appreciated, even though it's not one that satisfies, the noise and everything, but I too think it's worth looking into and talking to them. Thank you.
I had a question related to something what Barb said. I thought we had some kind of noise ordinance with decibel ratings. Could that be incorporated into this construction, or is that something entirely different?
We looked at it. It's mainly about other kinds of noise. It doesn't speak to construction work per se.
Other comments? If not, we had a motion and a second, so we move to a vote.
Mr. Bernier?
No.
Mr. Brackbill?
No.
Ms. Cleaton?
No.
Ms. Dan?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
No.
Ms. McKean?
In this circumstance, no.
Ms. Purnell?
No.
Ms. Tosti Vasey?
I guess I'll join the majority. No.
Next is an FYI. Spring Street Streetscapes Phase 2 projected start date is tomorrow, the 4th, with completion date of November 7th. Big Rock Paving is expected to begin work on High and Spring Street towards Dollar General. Contractor will mobilize and work out of the trailer to be set up in the municipal lot next to Cherry Lane. Another FYI is the batting cage at Governor's Park. Nastasi construction is to start in mid-September with completion in 6 weeks. Restroom renovations work will begin at the same time. It's good news. FYI, Public Works Union contract. The council's negotiation committee has begun will continue to meet with AFSCME regarding negotiating the new Public Works agreement. Next is new business. First item is the draft resolution.
Yes.
Oh, right. Good. Public Transit Task Force onto the agenda.
You can have Debbie.
Deb, you
it's
want to
just something
give
I
us the
can
update?
announce.
I'm sorry, I missed that. I wrote it down.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Bellefonte Public Transit Task Force will hold a public meeting on Tuesday, September 17th at 6 p.m. here in Council Chambers to gather feedback from public transit riders about the new Beeline service provided by CATA and how the loss of CATA Go service has impacted public transportation needs in Bellefonte Borough, Benner, and Spring Townships. We would also like feedback from businesses and nonprofit organizations whose employees, customers, and clients depend on public transportation. For those who are unable to attend in person, this will be a hybrid meeting. You can contact the borough for the Zoom link, and Joanne and I, who are the co-chairs, would really appreciate any written comments to be sent to our email addresses so that we can add them to the information. We need to find out as much as possible from the public transit ridership on how to proceed now that the service has been reduced as much as it has. And at the table was a sheet from the task force just outlining what we've been doing the last couple of months, just to keep you informed. So if I can email a copy of this notice to the office, if they can go on the website and all of our social media platforms. Thank you.
Yes, we'll take care of that.
So again, the next meeting is September 17th at 6 p.m., correct?
That will be the public meeting that we're holding together information.
Okay.
That will be on
We'll
a
put that
Tuesday.
on the website. Okay. Thank you, Deborah. Okay, next is new business. First is the draft resolution 09032-024-01 for Gaza ceasefire. I'll need a motion and a second to approve the draft resolution with or without modifications.
I'll make that motion, McKean.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Discussion? Comments? Ms. Purnell?
Yes, I have a statement that I wrote just because I didn't want to skip around and miss things. When I was first elected to council, I didn't really know what to expect since I had never been involved in politics other than voting. One of our residents, who was also an attorney, gave me some really good advice early on, basically telling me that my job as borough council person was to be attentive to the needs of the residents of the town. We need safe streets, clean water, street lights, refuse pickup, and a working sewer system. I'm sure I missed a few other important things, but the point is this resolution doesn't fall under any of these categories. While I'm sure that we are all sympathetic to the innocent people that are being affected on both sides of this conflict, this is not why we are elected to serve on this local borough council. I also want to clear up a misleading statement that was made by one of the speakers during one of the last two meetings. Local tax money does not go to funding either side of this conflict. There is not a single line item in our borough budget that goes to anything that doesn't pertain directly to our residents. Our federal tax dollars, on the other hand, are a different story. Does anyone here truly believe that if this resolution were passed, that would make any difference in bringing forth a ceasefire? It is my understanding that our government has been in talks with both sides to try to bring about a ceasefire with no success so far. The conflict between these two sides has been going on in varying degrees for longer than most of us have been alive. It is my belief that there really is only one thing that could stop this conflict: divine intervention. And I don't know how many of you believe in that, but that's my belief. Perhaps the other thing that might help would be to elect representatives at the national level that stopped sending our federal tax dollars to other countries and started caring more for the needy in this country, especially our veterans. If this council chooses to vote in favor of this resolution, it is my belief that we would be in direct conflict with the reason that we were elected to take care of the needs of our residents. I believe this would also set a dangerous precedent for other groups to come in and try to get us to support their causes. One last thing, in the light of transparency to the public and to the members of this council, is there anyone on council who has been working directly with or involved with this group that is coming here to ask us to pass a ceasefire resolution?
Other than telling them what the process was for bringing forth a resolution and what they did on who could speak, that is the only thing I have discussed with them. I have not created any other materials with them, but I did say, if you're going to come to council, you have to do it in this method, and that was it.
So if that's the case, then why was there no advance notice from you that this group intended to address our council? Had we been notified that the outcomes of the previous meetings might have been different. I feel that the best interest of our town and our council was disregarded with that omission. And one of our residents recently told me that it is her belief that council members that push personal agendas on council in the town should not be on council. And that is a statement that I totally agree with. And I yield my time.
Thank you, Ms. Purnell. Other comments?
Yes, regarding some of the things that Mrs. Perrell mentioned, I too have had some contact with a couple of members who are sitting in our audience, which is how this resolution came to be. I think it's an ethical and moral decision. I'm a humanitarian. That's my job. That's my personal belief. And I think that we were voted in to represent the people in this community. And there are people in this community sitting in the audience speaking. So you can't have it both ways. We're either representing the people or we're following our own beliefs and voting against what I think is morally correct.
Thank you. Other council members? Barbara.
I have a comment. This is Randy. I'm going to try to talk slow because I don't want to skip about here or there. But I do agree with Rita's comments that she presented earlier. With that, I do also want to remind council members that each council member has taken an oath to support Bellefonte Borough, Pennsylvania, and the United States. Bellefonte Borough has around 6,100 residents in our community. As a council, we do our due diligence to provide and maintain the water, sewer, snow removal, streets, fire, police department, as well as supporting community services provided by volunteers to meet the needs of Bellefonte Borough and its residents. Bellefonte Borough not being mandated by law to provide resolutions for actions taken by other countries, I will not support this ceasefire.
Thank you, Mr. Brackbill. Barbara?
Thank you. All council members are elected by Bellefonte Borough residents. We serve all residents, Bellefonte businesses, and Bellefonte Borough employees. This is my third year on Borough Council, and I do take my service to this community very seriously. And yes, I do make mistakes sometimes. Local government's focus must be on the people we were elected to serve. We are tasked with many duties that directly impact our residents, including but not limited to finance, budget, streets, water, sewer, refuse, buildings and properties, personnel, safety, parks, police, and administrative management. I have admired the people that are with the ceasefire resolution group for their tenacity, their dedication, and their willingness to show up. And I do thank those of you tonight who spoke with respect for council. That is much appreciated. As a governing body for local government, this council should have no involvement in foreign policy. As a responsible borough council member who understands this resolution is not our business, I will be voting no on the Gaza ceasefire resolution, as this is not a local issue.
Thank you, Barbara. Other council members? Go ahead, Joanne.
I've heard 15 people, 16 people here this evening talk. I feel for every life that has been lost. I believe that this is not a resolution that is anti-Semitic. It's very clearly stating that it is the government of Israel who has been causing the problem. It's not the people, the Jewish people of Israel. It is also not the Islamophobia in the sense that they are the individuals who are having this genocide happen on them. I agree with several people in the audience who have said, like Phil Ruth said, is we have a history of standing up. You've all heard the fable that the mouse roared. I think what we're hearing here this evening is an attempt to have the mouse roar enough around the country to attempt to say, we need to be clear on what we want for peace and harmony throughout the world.
Thank you. Other comments from council? I do. Oh, Mr. Mayor.
As the proud mayor of Bellefonte and serving the people, you know, I have a great respect for everybody's passion for speaking as they did. I have a great respect for everybody on council for what they do. You know, there were plenty of people who spoke. I just know that for me personally, a lot of things, it deals, like people said, it should deal with the borough and the things that the borough does. One thing that spoke to me tonight is all people should be treated with dignity. And that's just not people around the world, that's people within our community, people at this table and people out there, which is why I think we respectfully sat and listened to everybody. So that's basically all I wanted to say is that just spoke to me about how people should be treated with dignity.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Holdeman, roll call vote.
Mr. Bernier?
No.
Mr. Brackbill?
No.
Miss Clayton?
Yes.
Miss Dan?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
No.
Miss McKean?
Yes.
Miss Purnell?
No.
Miss Tosti-Vasey?
Since the majority of the council disapproves of this motion, I will vote no with the majority so that in the future we could reconsider this issue.
Did everyone?
That's it. 6-2.
6-2, motion doesn't pass. Next item, resolution 0903-2024-02. That's authorizing a petition to the PA Liquor Control Board to an extension of an exemption from amplified music regulation. Like most laws, that's written very confusingly, but basically that's saying we give permission for our local police to enforce the local noise ordinance when it comes to amplified music at ungodly hours of the night. That's what that is. I need a motion and a second.
I'll make that motion, Clayton.
Thank you.
I'll second. Dan?
Discussion.
Mr. Bernier?
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill?
Yes.
Miss
Yes.
Miss Clayton?
Yes.
Miss Dan?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Miss McKean?
Yes.
Miss Purnell?
Yes.
Miss Tosti-Vasey?
Yes.
Next is the Civil Service Commission eligibility list for police officers. Acting Police Chief Bill Whitmer is recommending the selection of Noah Bowman. I need a motion and a second to select Noah Bowman from the eligibility list and to make an offer of employment.
I'll make that motion. Dan?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion or comments or questions? The chief's here. If not,
Which one is this? Civil Service Commission. Eligibility of the Civil Service Commission. Okay. Mr. Bernier?
yes.
Mr. Brackbill?
Yes.
We're going to install a Discovery Space device across from the Dollar General. I need a motion and a second.
I'll make that motion. Dan?
I'll second it,
Oh, it's a
Clayton.
free little library. It's a little book thing. Okay. Thank you.
I have some questions on this because I didn't, because I also don't understand.
Well, I didn't read it correctly, that's why, but it's
What
a free
is a
little
library?
Yeah,
LAB?
we know what it is, Joanne. It's a free little library where you go and get books.
I
They're all
don't
over
think they're
town.
called free libraries. I was thinking this was something like little experimental things that kids could pick up and take home and things.
I think
Aren't
it's
there
more than
science
just books because it's a Discovery Center's project, so it's more than just books, but it's the same idea.
Okay, and let me see. Will there be some type of greenery or other plantings under the box in order to make sure that it is both accessible without creating a walking hazard for people with little or no
There's,
vision from bumping into it.
well, I mean, there's already greenery planned for that area. You know, we're gonna try to, you know, place this so that it doesn't interfere with the greenery. We can always add more greenery later, but we're gonna try to attempt to put it in so that everything's compatible.
Yeah. I know that we had this concern about some of the other signages that had sharp edges, and people who have low vision could theoretically bump into it. So I was thinking maybe we could have some greenery or something else to soften it so that it can still get to the library, but make it safe for people who can't see it.
We certainly can look at that, yes.
Other discussion?
I just have one other question, and maybe I just can't figure this out. Where exactly is this going? It says across from Dollar General along Spring Street.
In the green space that was
The
just
newest
last
place
year.
that we just did. Okay, thank you very much.
Others, okay? That's it?
I had a motion and a second. Yes. Dan and Cleve. Okay, so we're ready. Mr. Bernier?
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill?
Yes.
Ms. Cleaton?
Yes.
Ms. Dan?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKean?
Yes.
Ms. Purnell?
Yes.
Ms. Tosti-Vasey?
Yes.
Next is the Armory Building large partner desks, filing cabinets, and miscellaneous furniture. Need a motion and a second for Borough Management to put these items out for bid.
So moved, Brackbill.
Second, Dan.
Thank you. Discussion? Comments? Joanne?
We've been using Municipal. It's one of the vendors we do use, so likely yes. Yes. Yes, anybody can get the Municipal bid. We can definitely do that, yes. Yep. But yes, we're happy to do that. We'll be doing that.
Could you repeat the name of the site again that this is going through? I didn't quite catch it.
Municibid?
Municibid.
Municibid.
Yes, Munici is short for municipal, but I'll send all that out to you, as well as we'll be posting it.
Okay, thank you.
Advertising, yes.
All right.
Mr. Bernier?
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill?
Yes.
Ms. Cleaton?
Yes.
Ms. Dan?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKean?
Yes.
Ms. Purnell?
Yes.
Ms. Tosti-Vasey?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Alderman.
Yep.
The final item is public comment regarding issues not on the agenda. This public comment period is for oral comments regarding items that were not listed on tonight's meeting agenda.
Julie's signaling there's nothing from the audience, but there's some.
Oh, thank you, Julie. I have to read. I can't look up and read at the same time.
Joanne, comment.
Okay, Joanne.
I received a text message this afternoon.
And it goes by state.
Another elected official asked me to announce this evening that on Sunday, September 8th, from 3 to 5 p.m. at Webster's Bookstore. Oh, sorry. Thank you. I'll start over. I received a text message from another elected official asking me to announce this evening. On Sunday, September 8th, from 3 to 5 p.m. at Webster's Bookstore Cafe at 133 East Beaver Avenue in State College, there is going to be a informational presentation about advocating for affordable housing. Local housing nonprofits will present ideas for future projects and their vision for housing affordability. And it is expected that it will help community members as well as elected officials know about housing affordability and what changes might be needed throughout the community in order to do that.
So that's September 8th from 3 to 5. Webster's Bookstore, relative housing, affordable housing. Thank you, Joanne. Need a motion and a second to adjourn.
I make that motion, Dan?
Second, Johnson.
Adjourned.